Chaz Pearson, and this is the Outlet Forum with my esteemed co-host Chris Camello. What up, Chris?
What up? There's a lot to get to tonight, brother. A lot to do.
And you know what it's like, when you're on CNN and you got the reporter out in the field and it takes them a minute to get the little extra time on the earpiece. Bob, I got you right here, live. We got everything. We got everything tonight from WBC World Baseball Classic Baseball. We're talking NFL free agency. Max Crosby getting his trade Knicks might be a blessing in disguise for the Raiders. We'll get into all the basketball news from SGA to Jaylen Brown to Wemby. But we got to start off first, Chris, and we'll get to Bam, of course. But I still see the NBA from these purple and gold goggles I got on, baby. The Lakers are up first because they have won 6 of their last 7. Should have been a 7-game win streak if JJ Redick just didn't leave LeBron on the bench instead of bringing him in for Rui Hachimura. But that's another discussion for another day. Chris, the Lakers are now 10-2 without LeBron when Luka and Reeves play. What did you make of not only the game against the Timberwolves and their defense and how they were able to show up, but how do you think this bodes for the rest of the season, given that Lakers are playing so good without LeBron?
I think it's something that we knew was capable, that this team was capable of, and all you have to do is go back to October, November, early in the season when LeBron was out with the sciatica. And it was obvious that this Laker team was capable of playing well without him, with Luka and Reeves leading the charge. Here's the problem: Luka, Reeves, LeBron dynamic. It's just hard defensively. That's one big issue in and of itself, right? You have a 41-year-old out there who is not capable of playing defense at a high level consistently. You already have Luka and Reeves who are questionable defenders at best, and that's a reach even just saying that. So it's one less guy on the floor with this current lineup who is a defensive sieve. Combine that with more athleticism, a little bit more speed, now LeBron not being so without another ISO heavy player like LeBron out there. Now the ball could move a little bit, and now you could feature DeAndre Ayton more. And why is that important? Because DeAndre Ayton has made it clear if this dude doesn't get the fucking ball, he's not going to do shit the rest of the game. And you've seen him play better the last couple of games against a couple of big physical front lines with the New York Knicks as well as the Minnesota Timberwolves. And he's against both of those squads. So it just works right now. And I think the sense of urgency, I think the Lakers see the finish line. They're trying to get out of eventually to get home court advantage in a first round match, depending on who they face. So just look better right now. And it's collective. Jake LaRavia, look at the hustle he's doing. Marcus Smart, I know he's struggling to make threes right now, but he's doing everything else. The hustle plays, the defense, the leadership. I mentioned Ayton, Hachimura, again, looks better minus LeBron. I mean, that's always been the case with Rui Hachimura. And I think the other aspect too, the guy that I've been actually low-key most impressed with, Chaz, call me crazy, Luke Kennard has been absolutely fantastic for the Lakers. And not just with his shooting, his ability to cut and move without the ball. If they run him off the line, he's actually got some pretty good handles. He can get into his spots, and he can either finish near or around the rim. He's got some pretty good touch, or he could set up an open man in the corner and enable players. So he has just been a superb fit. Talk about one of the better trade deadline acquisitions over the last 3 years since they got, Rui and Russell and Beasley and those guys, Vando as well. But, Kennard's been fantastic. Even Max at Kleba, I know he hasn't played the last few days, but, the games that he was playing, he was leaving a mark. So they just look, I think the word I would use, Chaz, and I want you to comment on this, they look lighter without LeBron. They look lighter. The flow is better. And I'm not trying to throw LeBron under the bus like that, but I just think that was the best word I could use to describe him.
I think when it comes to LeBron, the writing is on the wall. This is going to be like, if for anything else, politics and everything else that's going on, just for pure basketball reasons, which is the first time I could say in my entire life that LeBron is not going to be on the team for a basketball reason. And there are legitimate basketball reasons now at this point to point to LeBron not being on this team any longer. If not for anything, just allowing Austin Reeves to cook. Now, if you think Austin Reeves is going to be the guy to play with Luka for the next 5 years, then go ahead, keep him, get LeBron off. But if you think that there's a chance that you could turn Austin into Giannis or any of these other major stars that might play a little bit better with Luka, then you go ahead and make that move. But as far as LeBron, this sample size is starting to get too large to look away. And no, you don't want it to be for an entire season, but I mean, the Lakers have 20 games left in the season, somewhere thereabout, maybe like 17
I believe,
games left in the
18.
season.
Yeah, 17 or 18.
So,
yeah, right around there.
Like,
it's under 20.
Let's say they go another 12-5, with or without LeBron out on the floor, and they wrap up the 3 seed, and JJ Redick has big decisions to make when it comes to LeBron. How I would do it personally, I would just stagger the minutes a little bit more. And because the Lakers don't have a bench, and because Austin Reeves doesn't play well off the bench for a longer stretch of time, who probably does with all the experience that he has, I'm not saying bring LeBron off the bench. He starts the game, he finishes the game, but during that second and third quarter, he plays with the bench a little bit more to fortify that bench, to play with guys like Luke Kennard and Rui Hachimura a little bit more, and Marcus Smart a little
Jackson
bit more.
Hayes.
He plays better with Jackson Hayes than Jackson Hayes does without LeBron on the floor, in my opinion. So there are things and there are benefits to having LeBron play during those times, or having him play less minutes, which I know he probably doesn't want to do, but that keeps him fresher going into the long stretch of the season where you're trying to fight for final playoff position and get a good matchup, a home matchup in the first round, if you can get it, which in the position that they're in, they control their own destiny to do so, having the 4 seed, maybe even the 3 seed after Denver gets done with Houston in this 20-point lead late in the third quarter as we speak. So there are a lot of things to look forward to with the Lakers. They're hitting their stride at the right time. For some reason, after losing all of those games that they did a few weeks ago, post All-Star break, to where they are now in just a short time of about 2 or 3 weeks is a really big turnaround for JJ Redick. Everybody was talking about how JJ Redick isn't getting the most out of this team just even a week and a half ago or 2 weeks ago against that after that Boston game, a week after the All-Star break. But now you got him third in the West. So I don't know if anybody's going to have much to say about JJ Redick moving forward.
Well, look, my thing with Redick was the fact that it was just a difficult situation, and those losses were disappointing because what were we saying, Chaz? The one thing that the Lakers had going for them this year was they were good in close games. They found ways to win games that maybe they shouldn't have won, right? And they won many early in the season. There was bound to be a regression at the means at some point. The Boston game was disgraceful because I just did not like how they came out with the energy and getting embarrassed against Boston on a night that Pat Riley, on a day, I should say, that Pat Riley actually erected in his honor.
I was there, man.
I was, and I know you were there. Exactly. So, the Orlando game, that game you probably should have won. It got away from them. The Phoenix game got away from them. And then we were just kind of saying, you know what? This team is who they are, that they'll still potentially win 50 games, but don't hold your breath in the playoffs. Now, between how they're playing and the fact that some of these other teams, Denver's looked a little more vulnerable of late. Houston does not look as razor sharp. Minnesota even, they're losing tonight to the Clippers. There seems to be an opportunity there. However, anyone could win on any given night. I'm not trying to take anything away from these wins against New York or Minnesota or even the Denver game. They gave themselves a chance to win. That game was right there in their grasp. I like how they played, even though it was a wire-to-wire loss. They were there for the end of it. The question is, can they beat any of these teams 4 times out of 7, while still trying to figure out the best way to utilize LeBron. That is really going to be the tough part, because to ask LeBron at this stage of the season to now become Manu Ginobili or J.R. Smith or, one of these other guys, especially in a non-serious injury situation, I don't see that happening. That's the thing. You're right about staggering the minutes, but what does that look like at the beginning of the game, and what does that look like at the end of the game, Chaz? You could do it in between. I just don't know the first and the fourth quarter, where some games are honestly. So we shall see. That's going to be the big question right there. But I think you're right. I think it's becoming clear that the end of the LeBron era is near, and the Lakers might be better off for it. And maybe so could LeBron. I don't know.
Maybe so could LeBron. Good point. Great point. Well, moving on to a team that LeBron played for, and his franchise record for points scored in a game in a Miami Heat jersey was passed last night, along with everybody else in the entire history of the league, except for Wilt Chamberlain. Bam Adebayo goes for 83 points against the Washington Wizards. Chris, I'm going to give you the floor first on this, because once I go, I don't think anybody's going to be able to follow. So save me a little meat on the bone, but what did you make of not only the 83-point performance, but how, in your opinion, will this performance be remembered?
Well, first of all, Bam Adebayo is a terrific human being. If you watch that Court of Gold and his backstory and everything like that and where he came from, this is a hard-working superstar. What I like to call a self-made guy. Reminds me a lot of what guys like Chris Taylor, Max Muncy in baseball. These were not highly touted people, but people that get with where they were. Bam was a lottery pick, but let's be honest. I think everyone thought he'd be a nice piece. Never like an all-star caliber, two-time gold medalist type player. And let's be honest, Bam has left his mark on the Miami Heat organization along the likes of Alonzo Mourning, Dwayne Wade, and LeBron James. That is not easy organization like that. So congratulations to him as the individual. The second part is I never thought of anyone that was Kobe. Bam was not on my list. Not top 5, not top 10, not top 100. I thought Luka, Booker, Curry, Durant, LeBron, Ant-Man, that's where my mind, went. Hell, maybe even Dame Lillard in his prime. But to see him do that last night, what he did through 3 quarters alone matched what Kobe did in December of 2005. That would have been enough. I didn't like how it ended because it felt manufactured. It didn't happen organically. And never mind the Washington team. You can't control that. Stink. Okay. But the fact of the matter, I didn't like the intentional fouling of the Heat last minute. The last minute and the intentionally fouling so that they could give opportunities at the, on the court and at the free throw line. That to me is just really, it spoiled it for me. It really did. So congrats to him. But I just think that whole situation just felt forced and unnatural and manufactured. Good for him, I guess. And shout out to his Heat teammates for his best interests in mind, I guess. But it just sucked. It just sucked. And I'm trying to take my Laker Kobe fandom out of it, bro, but I can't.
No, my Laker Kobe fandom has nothing to do with this, because I have no gripes with Bam himself. My gripe is not with Bam.
Exactly. He's a good
Bam
dude.
did everything that he should. No, but even if he was a bad dude, even if he was Terry Rozier or whoever you want to name as not an unsavory character or whatever you want to call it, like, I still wouldn't care if Terry Rozier got 83, because your job is to do as well as you possibly can do. Get the ball in your hands, put the ball in the hoop as many times as humanly possible in a game, regardless of who is on the floor. So let me get that out the way. My gripe is specifically with Eric Spoelstra of the Miami Heat. That challenge with however many minutes left to get an extra possession, those timeouts, not taking him out of the game, the intentional fouling, because the Wizards weren't intentional fouling until the Heat started doing that shit. And it's like, okay,
Right, yeah.
well, you're doing everything you can to get the record, where we're going to do everything we can to not let you get the record. Or we're not even the record, but it was at that point, it was just about 81 because you knew he wasn't going to get to 100 given how much time was left on the clock,
Right.
and everything like that. So my issue has nothing to do with Bam, has everything to do with Eric Spoelstra, because there's no way a player goes out on the floor and intentionally misses a free throw without his coach telling him to do so to try and get an extra possession.
Correct.
So those things are what my biggest gripe is. And if it, like, regardless of if it's,
and it was a blowout, and it was a blowout. Yeah.
And it was a blowout. So it's like, okay, guys, if that's the case, then why are we getting so all up in arms about a guy shooting a three when he's up 20 because he wants to pad his stats? Like, we have to choose, NBA guys, on what we think is disrespectful to the game and what we don't think is disrespectful to the game. And really quick, Chris, last thing, this was disrespectful to the game. I get there were shenanigans in the Wilt game. They said, we don't know. We never saw it. They say there were some shenanigans in the Kobe game. There really wasn't. I saw that entire game in its entirety. I saw the Luka Doncic game. I saw the Devin Booker game, the Damian Lillard game, the Donovan Mitchell game, like the Joel Embiid game. A lot of these games, 5 of the last 10 top games outside of Wilt have come in the last 20 years. So we've seen a lot of these games. So I don't want to hear the fact that they all come with shenanigans and bullshit that happened in that band. No, we have never seen anybody intentionally miss a free throw up by 25 points. That has never happened.
Yeah. Or challenge when the game is at hand. Yeah, not to mention, you got to think about this. They're trying to get, I understand winning the game. No. I'm just saying, no, first of all, Chaez, you brought up a lot of good points. I'm really thinking about Spoelstra or anything like that. But it also, there's this aspect too. You're putting, one of the great things about blowouts is what, Chaez? You rest your regulars. You buy some time, because you never know if you're going to need those legs on the next night or 2 nights later and everything like that. And now it's like, I'm putting my guy in a position where, Bam is fairly durable, but at the same point in time, now what if something's the next night because we were trying to get, we were forcing Bam out there in a game that was already in hand, and now potentially because of sullying the integrity and looking after more the individual over the team or over the game itself, like you were pointing out, now he potentially gets hurt. So that aspect of it too. And the whole comp to Kobe.
They would tell you it's worth it.
Good. If you want to respond.
I would just say he would tell you it's worth it because he knows he's not going to win a championship this year. And
but
has Kobe Bryant. But that's just
to quote the great Alonzo Harris, this shit is chess, this ain't checkers, bro. You know what I mean? And the fact of the matter is the Kobe situation, I go back to that game, Chaez, that Laker, yes, Toronto was an ass team. Sam Mitchell, Jalen Rose, like that. Chris Bosh, I think, was in his 3rd season in the NBA or whatever. The Lakers were down double digits at the end of the first half. The Lakers stormed back because Kobe put them on his back in the second half. And guess what? They were only up by 6 going into the fourth quarter. They needed every bit of that just to hold off the Toronto Raptors. And even then, Kobe came off with like a minute to go. And then don't forget the December of 05 game, the 62 through against Dallas. Kobe could have played the fourth quarter, but the Lakers were up 20 going into the fourth quarter. And Brian Shaw, who was an assistant coach at the time and Kobe's ex-teammate, who he won 3 championships with, said, hey, if you go out there, you have a chance to get, 80 points or 85 points or whatever. He said, no, we've already got the game won another night. So there is an element of a game, the dignity of the game and everything like that, like you're calling it out, respect to the game, that Kobe, I think, understood. And I'm not trying to draw too much of a comp, and I'm trying to not sully what Bam Adebayo did, but it just felt the end was too much shenanigans. And actually, you're right. You can go back to the Devin Booker 70-point performance, Dame, Embiid, Luka. Thanks for pointing those out. I kind of have forgotten about those. And I think Mitchell had 60-something one night. It didn't feel
71
like shenanigans, bro. It just
71.
didn't. 71. Yeah. And what did Embiid had? Embiid had 70 one night?
70.
Is that right?
Yeah.
70, yeah. And I think Booker at 73. I believe Devin hit Booker at 73 and Luka had like 72 or something. Yeah. I remember all those games being tight games, close games. I don't remember the Phoenix Suns. By the way, Devin Booker did that in Boston. I don't remember the Phoenix Suns having that game in hand. You know what I mean? Because sorry if you had the game in hand. Anyway.
Damian Lillard 71 is the most efficient and the best true shooting percentage of any of the 70-point performances that are above him. So, like,
yeah,
if it was that, if Bam got it the way Dame did, or even the way Luka did against the Atlanta Hawks, who weren't shit at that time, you know,
he did
in terms
well
of
too. That's the other thing. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, there's that too. But here's the thing. Regardless of what we say, and I said this in the moment in a group chat, I said the record books aren't going to care. They're not going to remember how many free throws. They're not going to remember the intentional missed free throws or the intentional fouls or the dumbass challenge with 4 minutes to go or, you know, anything like that. They're just going to see 83. And I do think now I will say this. There were some people pointing out he should have took himself out at 81. No, you go for it. You go for it.
No, you go for it.
At that point, yeah. At that point, you've already done all the shenanigans and shit. Like the fuck. Go ahead.
What's another point?
Yeah. At that point, you know. So I could say on this topic forever. We got three other major topics to get to because today was a major day. But I'll just say this performance will be remembered as the 83 as it is, and everything that we've said in the last 5 to 7 minutes about it isn't going to matter because that one number is going to mean more than anything else.
I disagree. I think it'll be remembered with the shenanigans more so than the actual 81-point performance Kobe had or what Wilt did in I believe it was in 59, right? Wilt did the 100 up in Hershey, Pennsylvania. Yeah, something like that. 62. Goddamn, I was close. 59, though, they won a championship that year. By the way, I did want to give Wilt a quick shout out, brother, before we get into Jaylen Brown. I'm assuming Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is going to snap his record for most consecutive 20-plus point games in a row tomorrow night when the Thunder host the Boston Celtics. And I just want to say, anytime you pass the great Chamberlain in anything, you have done something right. And more than that, you deserve to have the word great next to your name. And Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is great. Pure and simple. And he may not be a Hall of Famer yet, but he's certainly putting together a mighty resume, Chaz. So I just wanted to point that out before we moved on to Jaylen Brown. Speaking of Boston.
No doubt. I couldn't agree more. Well, really quick on JB, just to speed things up a little bit, because we have to make sure we got those thoughts out about Bam. JB was fouled by not Champagny, by Vassell.
No. Castle. Oh, was it Vassell? I thought it was okay.
It was Vassell. It was Vassell. He was pushed.
Yeah, good.
Clear push. Ref missed it. But here's the thing that I don't get, Chris. The biggest point in it isn't the fact that you missed the call, isn't even the fact that you teed up Jaylen Brown because he was definitely getting his money's worth because you missed a blatant call right in front of him. You get pushed out of bounds and then it goes the other way. You know, he wants that call, especially in a close game. The game was a 2-point game at this point, late in the second quarter. Mm-hmm. So Jaylen Brown is getting his money's worth, and the other ref from the other side of the court, after Jaylen Brown gets his first tee from the crew official that he's actually going after, the other official, who's the subordinate, who's not the chief, who's actually a newer referee, is Tyler Ford was the chief. The other, I forgot what his name was, but he's the one that gave the second tee to Jaylen Brown and throws him out. And I love the comment from Joe Mazzulla after. He said, my principal actually had the balls to suspend or what's the other word? If you don't suspend him, then you kick him out of school.
No, it's
pretty
a
much.
suspended.
He would say he wouldn't let.
Yeah,
He said he wouldn't let the hall monitor do
you got it.
Like he actually did it himself. And I love that
Yeah.
in saying that, hey, this other small time official is the one that threw JB out in a big televised NBC Wednesday, Tuesday night game, coast to coast, that had the Celtics and Spurs in the first game and the Lakers and the Wolves in the second game. This is what you market your product as, and you got referees throwing out big time finals MVP players for arguing a call that you got wrong in the first place. So Chris, the question to you is the question at the bottom here. Are the refs too emboldened now? Like if we're seeing players get thrown out, this reminds me of throwing out Tim Duncan laughing at Joey Crawford, honestly. What do you make of it?
Yeah, I've been saying this for a while. This is obviously a new wave of refs. Gone are the days of Steve Javie, Hugh Hollins, Dick Bavetta, Joey Crawford, Dan Crawford, Bennett Salvatore, Bob Delaney. There were a lot of really good refs for a long time. You know, Louis Grillo was another one I remember hearing a lot. James Capers. I could go on. I remember all these refs. Now, here's the thing. These refs are not perfect, Chaz. They're human beings. The problem, and this has been a problem, I think, for a while, are these new refs a little too touchy, a little too soft? Are they not giving the same amount of leeway that those refs that I just mentioned, and Ernie Fryers and Earl Stroms that came before them, gave these players, the star players? And, you know, Jaylen Brown is obviously, he's a star player, but you don't really see him get teed up much. You know, he was even saying, I don't shy away from contact, flop. I never really disrespect the game like that, but I felt like he was definitely in the wrong. And the fact was, it felt like Tyler Ford under control. And Tyler Ford now has been around. I've seen it the last 3-4 years, starting to build, resume as a good, solid young ref, and one that I think is being respected by a lot of the star players. So he teed up Jaylen Brown. Fine. I'm going to give you a warning. I'm trying to not throw you out because I also understand this part of the game. I think that other ref just kind of went rogue, to be quite honest. I think he made a major miscalculation rather than consult with Ford ahead of time and be like, hey, where are we at with Brown right now? Do we got to keep him on a hair trigger? And Ford should have been able to tell the other refs that, like, hey, keep an eye on Brown, but let's not try to eject anyone to that point. So it just seems to me, as much as you want to blame that other ref, and you're rightfully so, Ford should have also kind of reasserted his control, not necessarily to Brown, but to the other officials. You know, so you have to kind of understand the atmosphere and understand the moment. Yes, you're trying to stay nonpartisan. You're trying to stay even-keeled and controlled. That's your job as a ref. However, at the same point in time, you also can't overdo it or underdo it in any particular scenario. Chaz, I call it the scale of zero. Trying to get it right. You're not putting your thumb on the scale in one direction or another. And it just kind of felt like, I didn't watch the game. I just saw the highlights and about it afterward. I just feel like it was a massive miscalculation and or miscommunication by the two officials.
Yeah, I don't care if he went rogue or not. You just you don't do that or let that happen, you know. So I think these referees are just they're out of hand. And you know, you would have to, if I was a referee, you'd have to be cussing me out extensively for me to throw you out of a game. Like, you'll get a tech, but for me to throw you out of a game that people have paid to see you watch, to see you play,
especially a star player. Yeah.
I just,
of course, unless it's a fight. Yeah, of course, unless there's a fight or something like that, punches thrown or anything like that, like what we saw between what was it? It was the Pistons, and who'd they get into it with recently? Was it the Hornets? The Charlotte Hornets? We were talking about that on the show. Yep. Actually, yeah. So unless it's a situation like that, yeah, not many ejections need to be like that. But also, too, you know what? At times, and we've said this about Luka too, though, Chaz. I'm just trying to play devil's advocate just for a second. Shut up at times too. You know what I mean? I understand you're upset, but you got to let stuff go and confront a ref. Do it on a timeout when you're a little calmer and not so heated, and then maybe a good conversation will prevail out of that. I don't know, but it sucks either way.
Maybe you're right about it. Well, moving on to another star player, SGA, Shea Gilgeous-Alexander. Really quick, Chris. I've been an open and shut case answer for this question. SGA said he has the answers to the test. He just got to see the question first when asked about his two great shots, two step back threes, to not only give the Thunder the lead, but ultimately push them over the edge and win the game by 3 after Jokic hit a 4-point play to tie the game after that. Those guys are pretty clear the two best players in the league on a consistent basis. It would be Luka if he played defense as well as Shea did, or passed as much as Jokic did. But those two guys are the guys. Chris, what did you make of SGA's performance, and did he just close up that MVP race against Jokic?
Man, I think it's unfortunately a lot of this is coming down to games played. SGA is certainly going to be in the conversation, as will Jokic. But that was clutch, man. That is why you pay a guy like Shea Gilgeous-Alexander the most. Why you put him in the same conversation as Wilt Chamberlain. That is why he is a reigning MVP, a reigning Finals MVP, and a reigning champion. And this guy is becoming one of the big-time faces of the league. So Shea is box office, man. And I know there's a lot of guys in the mix for MVP this year. Cade Cunningham, Jaylen Brown, who we just talked about, Joker, Shea. I think there's one more for MVP. Or that may be it, just those 4. Brunson. I think everyone was talking about Brunson with the New York Knicks, but I'm not so sure about that now. The fact is, this guy wanted to have that moment. Oh, Wembanyama. You could put Wembanyama in there for MVP as well. I'm sorry, not Brunson. And the fact of the matter is, this is what, Shea, this is what you pay Shea for. This is what I'm saying. And he knows he knows there's a chance they may see the Nuggets in a second round matchup or something. He knows there's a chance he could maybe even see Jokic and the Nuggets in the conference finals. Who knows? We don't know how the playoffs are going to go. I know you and I, before the season before it began, that we both thought Denver would end up, potentially taking that Western Conference crown from the Oklahoma City Thunder. But now I'm not so sure. The fact is, OKC is a well-oiled machine, and Shea is the captain of that boat. So me, if he hasn't locked it up, he's certainly damn well close. And when you have those kind of performances on a nationally televised stage against another MVP counterpoint, just like if he shows up, Jaylen Brown tomorrow night in OKC, then I think for sure he's got it. If Jaylen Brown lays an egg and Shea balls out, it's over. Shea's going to get that second consecutive MVP, brother.
All right, no matter what happens for the rest of the season, the answers to the test just got to know the question first. Sewed up the MVP race 24 hours ago. So as far as I'm concerned, or 48 hours ago now, because it wasn't yesterday, it's over. If you have any money to put on Shea for MVP, it's guaranteed money because he's going to win. So open and shut case to me. There's nobody that's even virtually close. The only person that would be close is Jokic, and I don't think he's going to make it with games played, in my opinion. Chris?
Yeah.
Let's get in just to a little bit of football. Let's switch gears. A lot of NBA for the last half hour. Let's close the show on a little bit of a different note. Max Crosby is one of the big-time players in the NFL, and he got traded on Saturday to the Ravens. And a few days later, and like with any trade, or like the Mark Williams trade with the Lakers last year at the trade deadline, physicals are a part of trades, and they are conditions that need to be made and placed in these agreements. And the biggest mistake, I think, was by Max Crosby's agent not sending him up to Baltimore the same day as the trade, or at least 24 hours the next day, to get the physical done, because 2 to 3 days got lost until the physical got done. And look, I don't blame the Ravens. Whether they got cold feet or not, whether they decided to do it or not, Just like I don't blame Rob Pelinka, because the Lakers are actually better off with DeAndre Ayton and not giving up picks than trading for Mark Williams, who it really isn't that great. Only turns it up when he plays against the Lakers this past season. So, in my opinion, whether the cold feet happened by Baltimore or not, is it fair? I'm not here to say it's fair. It's real life, because they went and signed Trey Hendrickson this morning to a 4-year, $112 million deal. And the question is, would you rather have Trey Hendrickson and keep your 2 first-round picks, or spend 2 first-round picks and get Max Crosby and not get Trey Hendrickson? So I think they did the right thing for the Baltimore Ravens. It just sucks for everybody else involved that could have went somewhere else, or the Cowboys could have got him for a lesser deal, or certain free agents could have signed for more money elsewhere. There are a lot of ripple effects from this deal. So that's the part that I feel bad about. But business is business, and Ravens did what I think was best for them, regardless if it was right or fair or foul.
Yeah, I think that's all good points. The only flack I will give to the Ravens flock is the fact that you already knew this guy was hurt. You already knew he had undergone surgery. If you were so certain of a deal like this, you should have done your research ahead of time before you even get to the physical stage. It's almost like preparing for court, right? You don't call a witness up until you're absolutely sure you got all the angles covered. That's the only thing I'll push back on the Ravens on. I understand why they did it, Chaz. I'm actually go ahead.
They didn't have all of the answers, so you don't get all of the medical records until the trade is agreed to. They're not gonna let you see every single little thing to negotiate what they want for the trade. They're going to try and do it in good faith, but you're not going to get and talk to the doctor on X, Y, and Z unless you agree or make that kind of agreement with them. So I think
for sure,
a lot of times that's why the physical is made, so that way we can see once we agree. And if it's not, then
this is not the first time.
Is it worth the 2 picks that I'm about to pay? No, it's only worth 1 and maybe a third, but I already agreed to both. So let's nix this whole thing. That's the sentiment.
Oh, okay. I am not saying you're wrong on any of this. And by the way, this has become a more prevalent thing. You mentioned the Mark Williams thing. I remember do you remember the Mookie Betts trade? Who was involved in that? Bruce Gratterall. And Bruce Gratterall was originally supposed to go to Boston from Minnesota, but I think Boston was he supposed to go to Minnesota from Boston? I can't remember, but the trade. And they said, no, he's got something with his elbow or his shoulder that we don't like. And the Dodgers said, you know what? We'll take that risk on. Instead of turning him into a starter or keep him as a starter, we're going to turn him into a reliever. So the fact is, I'm sure this is not the first time that there have been issues with physical that teams are willing to overlook because the risk, like you said, is worth the reward. To me, Max Crosby is still an elite defensive player in the game, and he certainly would provide a massive boost to a Ravens defense toward the bottom of the NFL in pass rush. I want to say they finished 28th in getting to the passer this past year. So Max Crosby, no doubt, would have not only been good for the Ravens defense, he would have been an addition to the culture of the Ravens. You know what I mean? Starting a new chapter in their defense, because they've had such a storied defense throughout, the franchise's inception. So he would have checked a ton of boxes for them and just sort of revitalized an organization that I think kind of needs it. Obviously they're past Harbaugh and all of that, but at the same point in time, clearly there was a problem there. And if none of these records were well known, or there was something that was withheld that they just didn't like, then they have to do what's best for them. They're giving up 2 first-round picks. Had they been giving up, Chaz, let's say 2 seconds, or like a second and a third and a fifth, maybe it's like, yeah, it's not that great, but you know what though? We're not giving up a ton, and we'll get him. We're still getting an elite defensive player. They're giving up 2 firsts. That is major right there in the NFL. So anyway, I don't blame them. I thought maybe if there was possible, they could have done a little bit more due diligence. But you know what? Trey Hendrickson is coming into town. Plus, they keep the 2 first. The Raiders now got to figure out what their next move is. Do they, even though they can afford to keep Crosby with the team, is it possible to kind of get that relationship back on track after they just dealt him? I mean, I'm not 100% sure because I don't think Crosby was blindsided by this. I got to imagine he was told you may get traded before, the NFL draft in April. So just be prepared for that. And we're doing this in your best interest as far as ours, but they've made a bunch of signings. So now it's just kind of a weird situation, and the fact is Raiders also have to make sure we're not just unloading this guy just to unload him. We also want to get something back in return as well. We don't want to just trade him for a bunch of low picks or something like that. So it's a weird situation. I understand why the Ravens nixed it, but what do the Raiders now do from here? Do they try to make this work with Crosby, or do they still try to deal him? And for who? Or I'm sorry, to who and for what? That's going to be the big question.
Yeah, the report is now the Raiders are more likely to keep him on the 26th roster. So it might be a blessing in disguise because the Raiders are a lot better than they were 3 days ago. And Max, with those guys that they signed, like Nakobe Dean and Jalen Naylor and all these different guys that they signed along Quay Walker, from Green Bay, like really good players actually, that they probably wouldn't have signed if Max was still on the roster. So, everything happens for a reason. So I'll just leave it at that. Let's close out tonight's show with a little bit of baseball when it comes to the World Baseball Classic. Chris, the quarterfinals for the World Baseball Classic are officially set. You are going to have the USA-Canada matchup that's going to take place on Friday, the 13th. You're also going to get Korea against the Dominican Republic, I believe. On Friday as well.
Japan.
Venezuela, Japan, and Puerto Rico, Mexico, who just got absolutely
No, not Mexico. No, but you said Mexico's moving on. They're not. They're Italy.
No, I'm just saying Mexico got completely annihilated by Italy.
I know. Yeah, nobody saw that one coming. Everyone thought could there be a gentleman's agreement that they'll both, if they both keep it low scoring, that they'll both advance and leave USA in the dust and everything like that. But that certainly did not happen. Shout out to Aaron Nola. He pitched a fantastic game. And honestly, Team Italy has been just an unbelievable surprise. I don't know if they'll get past Puerto Rico, but those guys have played hard. They've played sound, and they've played hard. I mean, they're just well managed. And shout out to former Dodger general manager Chaez, Ned Colletti. Hey, commentatori paisano. He's done an amazing job building this up, man. So commentatori.
I've been tapped in. I'm going to watch every single one of these games. I really thought that the Dominican Republic and Japan were going to be on the same side of the bracket and not the U.S., but it looks like I'm just going to say it. I don't think the U.S. has a chance. I think it's going to be the Dominican Republic against Japan, and I'm probably going to take the Dominican Republic over Japan, but don't be surprised if Shohei rises to the moment like he did a few years ago against Mike Trout in order to close out the World Baseball Classic. So I think it's going to be absolutely great. I'm really excited to see what Venezuela does. I'm very excited to see what Japan does. Very excited to see what the U.S. does against Canada. And if they can
don't sleep on Canada, man.
Yeah, I'm not going to sleep on them either. That game is going to be a pretty good one. So I'm just looking forward to it. My pick is the Dominican Republic. Chris, who you got?
It's hard to go against the champs, and Japan has just been so dominant, brother. I'm telling you, they have just been amazing. They haven't really been in any sort of real trouble yet, and maybe that's a bad thing too. They haven't really been tested, but I mean, they're going to be a tough team to beat. On Canada in that U.S. game, and I'll tell you this: these last two games, and even though they beat Mexico, they didn't dominate these last two games. And now you're playing against a Canada team that, looked pretty good today against Cuba. And Cuba was really solid too. So I'm interested to see how that matchup goes. and we'll see what kind of bounce back. Mark DeRosa didn't have the awareness of knowing what the situation was last night going into that Italy game. That does not bode well. And maybe that was just a one-off, a brain cramp and everything, but we're going to see how this team responds going into that game. But yeah, assuming Dominican Republic gets past Korea, that is going to be a showdown, and that's going to be a tough one for U.S. or anyone to beat the DR. So I'm going with Japan, the champs, just because I think that path to getting to the final is a little bit easier than it is for U.S. or DR. So we're going to see. But also, too, Venezuela played hard tonight. Came down to the end against the DR. So, yeah, give them. But the Paisanos, Chaz, the Paisanos, you just got to, even just getting to this point, I mean, who had them going 4-0 in that pool, bro? Who had that?
No one. They played great. So you said Japan, I say the Dominican Republic. I think that's what it's going to come down to now that I know that the Dominican is on the same side of the bracket as U.S. I thought it was going to be the U.S. versus one of those two, since they were going to be in the same side, Japan and Dominican, but I was wrong. I'm taking the Dominican Republic. Those guys are great. So with that being said, Chris, loaded, just like our show tonight. And we got in, got out, gave you everything we had. We appreciate you guys tapping into another great episode of The Outlet Forum. Chris, tell them where they can follow you, my man.
Oh, man, you can always follow me at Chris_Camelo on X. I'm on Instagram, CCamelo1, and be sure to follow us on at The Outlet Forum on X, on IG, and on YouTube. So in case you haven't gotten the show live, you can get it again later on the YouTube feed. And by the way, Chaz, you think Randy Rosarena and Cal Raleigh are going to squash that beef or what? You talk about a massive misunderstanding, or perhaps it wasn't a misunderstanding, but that got ugly over the last 2 days, brother.
I understand both sides. Cal Raleigh was absolutely right in trying to show his teammates that he's all about them and not his Mariner teammate. But I also understand Randy Rosarena not liking to be showed up on a global, not a national stage, a global stage for everybody to see his boy not shake his hand. So for that, him saying go fuck himself and go to hell, I completely with. Cal Raleigh defending himself today with the media, I see both sides. But Cal Raleigh could have done a little something just to smooth things over, because guys still chuck it up at first base and stuff, and there's still that part to the game. So I'm leaning a little bit more toward a Rosarena's side, but I see both.
Hey, Chaz, even tonight, Tatis got picked off between the Venezuela DR game. Tatis was picked off, and it was his former Padre teammate Luis Ariz who placed the tag on him. And you know what he did? Popped up. He put his arm around him. They had a quick embrace and everything like that. And that was it. It doesn't need to get ugly. I understand people have been talking about the Kobe and Powell, U.S. versus Spain and everything like that. Little bit of a different situation, different sport. So I just want that everything has different context, and doesn't mean just because I'm not even saying what Kobe did was right, but I understood what Kobe was trying to do, and it wasn't about Powell. It was about sending a message to the rest of the Team USA teammates, and even that could have fucked up his relationship with Gasol in the process. So it's never about the what; it's always about the how, and I think that's something that manager Dan Wilson is going to have to address with his 2-star players when they get back to camp.
I don't know. We'll see how long those guys can stay on the same field together. But we appreciate you guys tapping into the Outlet Forum. Luckily, no major deaths to report or speak on this week. Thank God. We appreciate you guys tapping in. We will see you next Wednesday as we gear up for the final stretch. Lakers could have the 3 seed by the end of tomorrow night. We'll see you guys next week. Thanks for tapping in. Peace.